You'll all remember this. Deepwater Horizon incident in April 2010, 11 people tragically died and 4.9 million barrels of oil spilled to sea, which cost BP billions of dollars to kill a whale, clean up and fines and compensation. As a consequence of that, plus the Montara incident off Australia, the European Commission drafted the Offshore Safety Directive, which came into force in 2013, or at least was published in 2013, and needs to be implemented in the UK by the 19th of July next year. And Rog and myself and our teams are both very busy getting that sorted out at the moment. We're implementing it. As it takes effect from middle of next year, we must be up and running, and the transposition of that, or the transition to it, has got to be completed by the 18th of July 2018. There's a year for non-production installations, modules, flotels and what have you, to be transitioned by 2016, and as well as new production installations. And existing production installations have got to be complete that transition to the new requirements of the directive by 2018. The directive calls for a competent authority to be in place to regulate the major accident hazards aspect of the regulation, and DEC and HSE are going to work as a partnership to do that. It was announced on Monday at an industry event that the competent authority would be called the Offshore Safety Directive Regulator, a nice snappy title there, I think you'll agree, which took about a long time to come up with. The competent authority, as I say, it will be responsible for the directive requirements. In other words, only those relating to major accidents and their prevention and the responding to them. The non-major accident functions of the industry, which HSE and DEC are responsible for, will continue to regulate those as we currently do. So what are some of the requirements briefly? Bulk of the regulatory changes, it's not changing. Thanks, cheers. The bulk of the changes are going to come through the safety or new safety case regulations. All installations are going to have to submit a material change to their safety case, and it will also for the first time include a number of environmental aspects. So there will be a requirement for operators and owners to submit a description of their safety and environmental management systems in relation to major accidents and prevention. There'll be OPEP arrangements as part of internal emergency response plan will have to be described, and there'll be updates to the OPEP document itself. And we'll also have to, in the safety case, there'll be safety and environmentally critical elements and a corporate major accident prevention policy. And the major accident risk assessment will also have to consider the environmental consequences of a major accident as well. And as a new requirement, OPEPs will be needed for non-production installations. At the moment, it's only operators who submit them, but now modules, flotels, well intervention vessels will need a fairly small OPEP. In the safety case regs, it speaks of, or in the directive, sorry, it speaks in these two articles about workforce involvement in reviewing the safety case. It speaks about the report on major hazards, but that's the safety case in the UK. And that's been carried across into the new safety case regulations with that regulation. Basically, a summary of the safety case has to describe a summary of how the workers have been involved in the preparation of the safety case, the review of it, and it speaks about how the safety reps undertake that role. So how does that affect UKCS reps? Well, I'm not an expert on safety reps and the safety case, so I'm going to pass over to Rog, who can talk about that process and possibly what opportunity there is for UKCS reps.
As Andrew's pointed out, the workforce involvement part of safety cases is well known within HSE, and we're dealing with safety reps all the time. I think there's a possible missed opportunity in the directive itself, in that it hasn't brought together E-reps and safety reps. You know, when we've been talking about that internally in our regulatory conversations, HSE and DEC, we've recognised that there's a possible opportunity here to throw some workforce involvement light onto the control of major environmental hazards. Most of what HSE does is very much about preventing catastrophes. The occupational health and safety stuff is important, but it's preventing another sort of Piper Alpha 100 dying in the night type event. So we're very much focused on the catastrophic end of this and getting workforce involvement brought to bear on that, because we know as regulators the benefits of doing that for companies. So a little bit about safety reps here. You probably know it. They have legal powers, and unfortunately E-reps aren't legally empowered under the new directive, which sort of leans against that missed opportunity I was talking about. But the safety reps have powers to inspect the installation, investigate hazards, incidents, and so on. They're a big value to the company, certainly companies who are using them in enlightened ways, and we see a spectrum of that, but they are a big value to the company and huge value to HSE, and they do influence what we do as a regulator. And I think the E-reps being a voluntary thing and not on a legal footing has the potential to be seen as a sort of a lower tier, and that would be a shame. I think we think we need both brought to bear on major safety and environmental hazards. Safety reps sit on safety committees, and again that's a legal obligation. It has to happen, and the committee's functions are laid down in law as well. When we're implementing the Offshore Safety Directive, the European directive in the UK, there'll be new safety case regulations, one or two other legal tweaks. But that statutory instrument, SI 971, which is the Safety Reps, Safety Committees regulations, is not being changed because the directive doesn't change it. And one of the important things in this piece of law for safety committees is to consider the causes of accidents and dangerous occurrences, and not just occupational ill health stuff, but major accidents and the potential for major accidents, and that's the catastrophe type events. Those should be the topic of conversation in safety committee meetings offshore, and I've seen some really good initiatives offshore where safety reps are pulling out pieces of a safety case and explaining how it's working or not working, as the case may be, and how it all fits together with what people are doing. It would be nice to see that starting to happen in the environmental catastrophe context as well, I think. Safety committees are chaired by the installation manager, and they must include safety reps. But there's provision for other people to be co-opted. Has to be by unanimous vote, but they can be co-opted onto the safety committee. And the guidance on these regulations points out that there's the co-optees could be specialists in particular activities on the installation. So as regulators, we can't enforce, much as we'd love enforcing, we can't enforce what happens with safety committees and who they co-opt and why they co-opt, but we can perhaps make a suggestion, which is really the message we want to leave you with here today. I don't see any reason why safety committees couldn't co-opt E-reps, and particularly for reviewing the potential for major catastrophe environmental stuff. That could throw a good focus, I think, onto environmental accident control, as well as the safety side of it. And that would link strongly back to the European directive and indeed Macondo, because the common factor here for both regulators and for all of us is to prevent some sort of catastrophic loss of containment event that would kill 50 or 100 people and pollute our shores and the shores of Northern Europe. So it's only a suggestion, and we're leaving it here on the table. It's obviously up to companies what they do and how they take things forward. But certainly when we scrutinise safety cases, we will be looking at what levels of workforce consultation there's been, and we will be testing that in practice offshore. So there we are.